Hello again. I'm back with another review. This is a revisit of the Prang 50 set of colored pencils. I gave it an initial review, but felt I needed to do something a little more challenging than drawing marbles. I've also had time to test them for light fastness. These are budget grade pencils, and I wouldn't expect them to be very light fast. With only 4 months winter exposure, we can see natural is a bit faded, as is peach. Pink, magenta, and the purple are all definitely faded. Berry red and plum are also a bit faded. The greens look okay. The blues look fairly reasonable. Rosewood is a little faded, but the rest of the browns look fine. Neon colors seem fine, but they are kind of washed out to begin with. The blue and dark blue may be a little faded. It may also have been how much pressure I used when applying them. I am, however, not overly impressed with the intensity of the blues in this set. So for light fastness, these aren't artist grade pencils, so I would expect them to fade. And they have. These seem similar to Faber Castell Classics or Prismacolor Scholars. To sharpen them, I find the very simple and free Faber Castell sharpener that comes with a 24 set of Crayolas works great. It is a bit messy, but I just sharpened them away from the drawing. I had started a drawing using the Lyra Rembrandt Polycolor pencils, but decided to stop because one needed to apply a lot of pressure to blend and burnish, and applying that much pressure made working with them uncomfortable. I also struggled with blending them. I don't really want to use budget pencils for this drawing, but I figure it would be a good challenge and definitely put the Prang pencils to the test. I started on the shirt, which is orange. There's a great assortment of yellow, orange, and red colors in the set. I will be using yellow, golden yellow, yellow orange, orange, pumpkin, red orange, and red. Some of the darker areas I use berry red, rosewood, or plum. These pencils are slightly wider or thicker than what I would call standard size. They are about the size of a Faber-Castell Polychromos. This makes them quite comfortable to use, at least for me. First impressions? If you keep the tips sharp, these lay down quite nicely. I don't have to use a lot of pressure. The colors aren't as intense as I would like, but they are quite reasonable for budget grade pencils. I do like that I'm able to layer the darker orange and red tones quite nicely. They don't blend like Prismacolors, but they do blend with some effort. I am able to smooth out edges with both light and darker tones. So these orange-red tones are really nice, but the blue tones aren't that impressive. The blue and dark blue are not that intense and seem quite washed out. One blue that is nice is the ocean blue. I find if I mix that with either the blue or dark blue, it gets me closer to the intensity I want, but not necessarily the right color. Onto the skin tones. I wasn't overly optimistic to work on the face and arms. Skin tones is usually an area where I see a noticeable difference between budget pencils and artist grade pencils. The lightest skin tone is what they refer to as natural. Then there's peach, sienna, cocoa, brown, and sepia. Tangerine can also be included in the skin tones, and to add blush colors, you can use berry red, plum, and rosewood. The skin tones surprised me, at least the lighter ones. Natural is light enough to match the overexposed parts of the reference image, but you can layer it to darken things up. Peach is also able to darken things up further, and they still blend and layer well together. You can include some tangerine or sienna or any number of blush colors to augment the skin tone, and they all combine quite nicely, layering or blending. I did find that when you started to add the darker skin tones, like brown, cocoa, and sepia, it did give things a bit of a grainy look, and it didn't look right. I should mention, I'm using a Prismacolor Premier White to lighten things up where I need it. While working on the face, I felt I could take the time and add layer after layer to get the tones I wanted to. The pencils weren't as forgiving as artist grade pencils, but I was able to make a few corrections by whitening with my Prismacolor. I will now take a little time to discuss how I feel about the pencils. I mentioned earlier that I use a simple Faber Castell sharpener to sharpen them, and it works fine. While drawing and sharpening, I didn't break any leads. A few crumbled tips, but no broken leads. You can sharpen them to fine tips, and you really want to take your time while drawing and keep the pencils sharp, as it helps in the detail. It also helps with blending or layering. You do need to use a good amount of pressure to blend and layer, but because the pencils are thick, burnishing and blending isn't as hard on your fingers as it is using narrower pencils. I would say I used about half the pencils in the box, and they are all fairly uniform in feel. There may have been one pencil that felt a little chalkier than the rest, but only one. Overall, the intensity of the colors is somewhat poor, but that is comparing them with artist grade pencils. They do well when compared to Faber-Castell Classics and Prismacolor Scholar. A weak point, of course, would be the blue tones. Now let's talk about value. This set cost me about $15. Some viewers mentioned they can get them as low as $5 US. Right now they're about $8, but they do get as low as $5. I've compared budget pencils before, and my first choice for someone on a strict budget would be Crayola. That is based on a 24 set for less than $3. If you could pick these up for $5 US, then they would probably take the top spot. A 60 set of Crayolas are about $9 in Canada, so about half the price of the Prang set, which is currently $20 Canadian. I'd prefer to work with Faber-Castell Classics, but they are generally more expensive. And once I get up into the $20 price range, I then start to look at going for an artist grade pencil like Prismacolor Premiers. For budget pencils, there's not much I can complain about. The box is horrible and will fall apart quickly. The pencils smell when new. The smell fades or you get used to it. They are not lightfast, but that is typical for budget grade pencils. They're sturdy, uniform, they layer well, they blend well, sharpen to fine tips. They've got good intensity on most of the colors, and they're excellent value, at least in the US. So definitely good budget pencils. I had watched other reviews that rated them highly, and I was skeptical, but they have certainly proven themselves to me. I probably failed to mention that this is my eldest son. His team had just won the zones, and they were on their way to the provincial championship. He had an amazing tournament, but he looks a bit funny in this picture. He normally plays shortstop. In the first inning of the first game, the ball took a bad hop where the grass meets the dirt, and it nailed him right in the nose. He suffered a mild concussion, and his nose was noticeably wider in this image, and his eyes darker than normal. His team won the next 5 games at the provincials, but lost the final game to an also undefeated Salmon-Arm team. It was a great experience, and I'm hoping my youngest will have the chance to make the playoffs this year. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope to be back in a couple of weeks with another review.